Chapter 10. Love-Hate. Kat grabbed the camera from me and held it in the palm of her hand. "When you took that last photograph," she said, "in the queue for the tickets, you must have put it in your jacket pocket without thinking, Ted." I reached my hand over to take the camera back. She held it away from me. "How did you feel, Salem?" she whispered, as if he was in the room, "when you realised you'd got into the pod without your camera?" I tried to take it again. She slapped my hand away. "Keep away, Ted. It's my find." Typical Kat. One moment she's saying how brainy I am, the next she's assaulting me, telling lies. Predicting what Kat is going to do next makes predicting the weather seem easier than counting to 3. Kat is not only more unpredictable than the weather, she's also more unpredictable than A. volcanic eruptions, B. lunatics, or C. terrorist attacks. It is a fact that her name sounds like the first syllable of the words like catastrophe, catalysm, catatonic. In other words, Kat is a walking disaster story, which is what Kat says about me when I drop things. I think it applies more to her. Sometimes when you least expect it, Kat is nice. When I was small, she'd read stories to me about talking bears and magic wardrobes and take me over to the pond in the park to show me ducklings. At school, she'll stick up for me in the playground when the rough boys pick on me. Mum says we have a love-hate relationship. She says that when I was a baby and Kat was 2. She found Kat leaning into my buggy one day and kissing me all over my face. Maybe I squirmed because the next thing Kat did was grab a hairbrush and thump me on the head. Mum had to drag her away from stopping from murdering me. When we got older, Mum was always telling us to play nicely together. Kat's idea of nice play was to line up her naked Barbie dolls with their savage haircuts and strange biro markings and play hospitals. She used toilet roll as bandages and cut them with nails and squirted tomato ketchup on them. She'd tell me to help her as the patient was dying. "Pass me the scalpel," she'd order me. "What scalpel?" "Any scalpel." I looked about. "There's no scalpel." "A pretend scalpel, Ted." "There's no pretend scalpel, Kat." "There is. It's right by your hand." "Kat, there is no scalpel by my hand. Only a toilet roll." "You're supposed to be the nurse," she'd shouted. I blinked. Nurses are supposed to be the women and I was a boy. I could not be a nurse. "Try to play, Ted," Mum said, looking on. So I went, "Nino, Nino, Nino," and turned the lamp off and on. And after that, I was always the ambulance. But Kat always wanted to be the nurse, and maybe that was why she went on being angry with me. Then my syndrome was diagnosed by the doctors. "Why does he have to go to all these interesting diseases?" she moaned to Mum and Dad. I don't remember what they replied. Right now, Miss Catastrophe was examining Salem's camera, and I was swallowed in the hot, huffy feeling I had back down in my esophagus. "He used up to 18 shots, she said. "He kept clicking him as we crossed the bridge. Do you remember? He took one of you and me, Kat, and I took one at the eye, just before the strange man came up to give us the ticket." "The strange man?" Kat said, looking up. "I wonder." I nodded. "I've been wondering about him too. Do you think these pictures might be a clue, Ted?" "I don't know." I tried to touch the camera one last time, but again Kat snatched it away. She turned its sleek silver slides around in her hand. "I wish it was digital like Dad's," she said. "Then we'll be able to see the pictures now. With this old-fashioned kind, you have to open it somehow." She took the camera and shrugged. "Don't know how. You get the film out and take it to the camera shop to have it developed. It costs money and you have to wait. What a palaver." She started fingering buttons and shaking it. "I think we should give the camera back to Aunt Gloria," I said, "because if she is Salem's next of kin—" "What's it got to do with that?" Kat said. I was about to explain how the next of kin inherits the property of people who have died and how, perhaps, this also applies to the property of people who have disappeared, when the doorbell rang. Kat and I jumped up. "Salem!" Kat said. She dropped the camera on the bed and we ran out of the room and down the stairs. But in the hallway, just coming in through the front door, which Mum was holding open, wasn't Salem. Only 2 grown-up people, a man and a woman. The man was in uniform, the woman wasn't, and this meant the opposite of what you might think, that the woman was in charge. This was because she was plainclothes and he wasn't. It was the police. Chapter 11. Margins of Error. Minutes later in the living room, the atmosphere was hot and close. Everyone was polite, everybody was calm, but you could have cut the atmosphere with a knife. That's what people say when invisible feelings vibrate in the air, like irons to just before an electric storm. Mum and Aunt Gloria were on the sofa. Aunt Gloria held a glass of brandy. Dad was standing, leaning back against the wall near the door. Kat and I stood beside him. The man, a detective sergeant, took notes, seated at the table. His boss, the woman, had taken another chair and was sitting in the middle of the room. She was thin and short, with blue skirt and a jacket and a white blouse, and her eyes moved quickly around the room like lightning strikes. First she said she was Detective Inspector Pierce and was in charge of finding Salem. Then she asked questions. Who everyone in the family was, why Aunt Gloria was visiting, and why she planned to move to New York. Then she'd asked to see the contents of Salem's backpack. She took his things out one by one. I looked on carefully because in good detective stories what people leave behind and don't leave behind can be a clue to where they've gone. There was a spare sweater, a pair of jeans, a pair of socks, underwear, pyjamas, another sweatshirt and a tiny towel. These didn't tell me very much. Then there was a battered back paperback entitled Murder at 12,000 Feet, a guidebook to New York, brand new with no creases and a tiny address book. Finally, there was a Swiss Army knife and a keyring with a model of the Eiffel Tower on it, but no keys. There were no wash things like a toothbrush because they were still in my bathroom. I remembered on the shelf by the basin. Detective Inspector Pierce held up the empty keyring with her eyes scrunched up. Aunt Gloria explained that Salem had brought the keyring back from a school trip to Paris. Then that she had rented out her house in Manchester and given all but her own set of keys to tenants. At present, she said, Salem had no keys to anywhere. There was silence. Then the inspector looked over to where Kat and I were standing. You two were the last to see Salem, I understand, she said. Kat told her in a quiet voice, not like her normal voice, all about the strange man, the free ticket, tracking the pod and waiting for Salem to come down and how he hadn't. We should never have left them to get the tickets on their own, Mum said when Kat finished. The inspector's hand waved through the air. What this meant I don't know. Then she turned back to Kat. You say you tracked the pod? Kat nodded. For half an hour you did nothing but stare up and watch the London Eye go round. Well, Kat considered, we walked back so as I was able to see better. If you're too close, you can't see the pods go round properly without getting them muddled. And we chatted a bit. Without getting them muddled, Inspector Pierce repeated. She interlocked her hands and rested her chin on them. We chatted a bit. You don't have to believe us. It's not a question of believing or disbelieving. But we tracked it. We did. Aren't we, Ted? I said. Sure. 100%. No, Kat. Kat's eyes and lips scrunched up. Sure. 98% yes, I said. The inspector looked at me without saying anything. The corners of her lips turned up, which meant she was slightly amused. Then she trapped her nose with her interlocked fingers. So, she said, you'd allow for margin of error? Only a small one, I said. 2%. 2%? In every human observation, I explained, there is a margin of error. This is because our senses are not foolproof. In fact, some people believe that 100% is impossible to achieve. I stopped and put my head on one side. As humans, we cannot even be sure that the sun will rise the next day. Our assumption that it will do so is arrived by a process of induction. This is a process where probability, based on past observation, allows us to predict things like the weather patterns. Oh, I've had enough of this, Aunt Gloria interrupted. Sunrise, sunset, up and down, wheels, tracking pods. This is not a funfair. This is about my son, my only son, and he's missing. What I want to know is what's being done about it. We're doing all we can, Inspector Pierce said. She unlocked her fingers and smoothed her skirt. I know you're fretting. Fretting? You make it sound as if I've lost a handbag. It's early days. He's only been missing a few hours. And the vast majority of cases, young people disappear like Salem, are found within 48 hours. 48 hours? We'll miss our flight to New York. 48 hours, but usually sooner. But from the word go, we take the disappearance of minors very seriously. That's why I'm here. He's not a minor, he's my boy. Mum put an arm round her. Oh, Glo, she whispered. We're doing everything possible, Inspector Pierce repeated. Such as? Dad said quietly. Everyone turned to look at him. The inspector sighed. We've begun checking the CCTV footage of the pods. No camera can see everything or everybody, but there's no sign of anything untoward happening that morning. Just the normal shots of normal tourists enjoying the view. We've also been taking statements from other people who rode the Eye at the time. Unfortunately, the numbers run to 300 plus, and we can only check the ones who pay by credit card. We've no way of checking those who paid cash. But again, so far, nobody remembers a boy matching your son's description. We've also checked hospital admissions. Aunt Gloria's eyes went round and large at the word hospital. But nothing. Perhaps he's still just lost, said Dad. That's indeed the likeliest explanation, Inspector Pierce said. There was a pause. Perhaps everyone was doing what I was imagining where Lost was. I pictured Salem lost on London Underground system, getting on and off trains, wandering down passages, not sure if he should be on north or southbound train, confused by the colours, not knowing that black stood for Northern Line or our line. I was thinking how if I sat next to him on the tube earlier in the day instead of Cat, I could have explained all about the London Underground map being topological and how you were meant to read it, and then Salem would have found his way home with no problem and perhaps be here now. We need some more details, more personal details, Inspector Pierce said. She leaned towards Aunt Gloria. I'd like to ask you some private questions. Mum got up. Let's leave, she said to the rest of us. Dad opened the living room door, leading Cat out by the elbow. But Aunt Gloria grabbed Mum by the hand. You stay, Faith. I need you, please. Mum sat down again. She stared over at me as I waited to see if Aunt Gloria would need me too. Mum mouthed something, but no sound came out. It was as if she thought I was deaf and dumb, and able to lip read. I blinked. Then she said the word loud. Scoot. That was the second time that day that Mum had told me to go away. I shuffled out after Dad and Cat and went into the kitchen with my hand flapping. Dad closed the kitchen door behind me. The police would find out more than I would, and it wasn't fair. A heavy feeling, like you get when you eat more calories than you can burn off efficiently, came down inside of me. Cat had her face pressed against the fridge freezer. A tear trickled down her cheek, and she was punching the side of her head with her fist. This meant she had the same feeling. It was called frustration extreme. Chapter 12. Another fine mess. The wall between our kitchen and the living room was not thick, and we could hear murmuring voices. Well, Cat, said Dad. Well, Ted. He quoted a line from his favourite film, Laurel and Hardy. Another fine mess. Cat started crying more and didn't seem able to stop. Dad put his hand on her shoulder, but this was not a good idea because it made her cry louder. Through the sobbing noises, I tried to hear what the voices from the living room were saying. I heard odd words. Salem, no, never. It was always Aunt Gloria's voice. I deduced that this was because A, she was nearer the kitchen, and B, she spoke more loudly than either Mum or the inspector. Then I made out a whole sentence. This was because Aunt Gloria shouted it out like a thunderclap. Salem would never run away from me. I put my hands over my ears. I felt air pushing itself against my face. My mouth opened and closed. I said. Dad opened the door to our back garden. It was early evening outside. He motioned for Cat and me to go out with him, but Cat shook her head. So I went out with Dad on my own. We walked down the path towards the garden shed, past our line of washing, which flapped in the breeze, light southwesterly. Dad, I said. Yes, Ted. What's the probability that Salem's run away? Dad gave me a scrunched up look. I'd hardly blame him if he had. Then he shook his head as if he didn't mean what he just said. I don't know, Ted. I think it's more probable he's lost somewhere trying to get back. 60-40? Sorry? 60% probability he's lost, 40% that he's run away? Maybe 70-30. I don't know. Then why doesn't he use his phone? Maybe he's run out of credit? Then why isn't he answering our calls? Maybe he's run out of charge. Dad looked up at the 3/4 moon that was rising from the east of the city. I know, a lot of maybes, he sighed. Salem and your Aunt Gloria have a strange relationship, Ted. For all that she nags him and backchats her, I think they are close. Close? Like weather gets close. No, close like near, close to each other. That's why I wouldn't have thought he'd run away. Not in a strange city, not without having anywhere to go. I remembered Salem's joke fit, because he didn't want to go to the art gallery. I remembered him stamping his foot when Aunt Gloria tried to suggest leaving the eye until later. I'm good at counting things and timing things and remembering things, but I find it hard to know whether people like each other or not. I have a basic 5-point code to reading people's faces, which Mr. Shepherd has taught me from cartoon pictures. Number 1, lips up, loads of teeth showing, is very amused and happy. Number 2, lips up, no teeth showing, slightly amused and pleased. Number 3, lips pressed together, slightly turned down, means not amused, slightly cross, or else puzzled. Hard to tell which. Number 4, lips pressed together, eyes scrunched up at the same time, equals very displeased or angry, and lips round like an O and eyes wide open, startled and surprised. I thought about Salem and the way his eyes shifted around the ground a lot, and how he'd looked up towards the sky when Aunt Gloria was talking, but he didn't fit into the 5-point code. I don't know what emotion it matched. I thought of him in the queue on the London Eye, squinting upwards, looking down and turning this way and that way. I thought of him shuffling in his sleeping bag, sighing in his sleep. Recognising the 5 basic emotions is one thing, knowing how they mix together is another thing. It is like knowing about secondary colours, as well as primary colours. Blue and yellow are easy to paint colours to recognise, but it isn't easy to predict that if you mix them together, you get green. So, if they are close, I said to Dad, That means Salem wants to be near Aunt Gloria, always, and wouldn't run away. Not necessarily near always, but there again. Dad ran a hand through his hair so he looked like Stan Laurel. We don't really know your Aunt Gloria that well, or Salem. It's been 5 years since we last saw them. The arm of her shirt sleeve on the line flapped into Dad's face and got tangled around his neck. He laughed, which seemed a strange thing to do when you're in the middle of a crisis. He peeled the sleeve out of his way. Maybe they are close, like the weather, Ted. Combustible. Who knows? All I know, it's another fine mess.